Welcome, Amit. The reason we're doing this is because you dropped a very curious update on the Discord where you've invented a new protocol, peer-to-peer protocol, and a application development framework to go with it.
Hey guys, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, whatever I built on top of other stuff. So my contribution is relatively. So we are using really sitting on the open source stuff, and today it is possible for you to create a brand new application, sorry, P2P application, and yeah.
But
So
wait.
what we have built.
Before we do that,
Mhm, mhm,
a little bit about you.
yeah. Okay. So I've been programming since I'm Amit Upadhyay. I'm currently the founder of a company called Swiftry, where we have built an open source programming language called fastn. It's a full stack programming language. Swiftry itself gives you a hosting platform for your fastn powered web application. Right? So we are kind of Heroku or AWS, but both fastn and Swiftry is from ground up designed for non-developers. So one of the feeling that I
Wait,
have
why is
a
it called
strong feeling
fifth
like
try? So tell us a
uh,
little bit about your biography.
so I was born in Lava, UP. I was studied in IIT Bombay, passed out in 2003. I've always been fond of startups. So actually in 2003, before the word VC was kind of invented, we started our first startup. I was building a phone and
Phone.
yeah, it was a hardware startup. We were building a landline phone with the same features as mobile.
Okay.
Actually, that business idea is still valid. It can still be tried by someone. Um, we also built a company called Acko, which was basically a very early social network, basically Twitter for India, kind of. But it ended up being YouTube for SMSs because people in here don't do discussions, right? Text-based discussion and not what we do. We do forwards, we do
Mm,
cool,
mm.
jokes and all the
Good morning.
good morning and exactly happy new year wishes. So we had the biggest collection of SMSs in 2007-8 period online that you could forward, and people used to just forward it to their girlfriends and parents and whatever, like everyone. I was also part of Browserstack. You guys might have heard. The founders of Browserstack were interns in my first company, Retro Labs,
No
where we were building the
way.
phone.
Okay, I did
And
not know that.
so obviously, we played there was a group in IIT which was all startups. So we all kind of a lot of startups kind of came up from that small group. So so Browserstack, I was the first kind of like an employee. Like when there were the two of them, I joined them. They started taking off, and I helped them grow till 100 something people. I was also kind of the early co-founding team of Acko, like the first engineer or whatever you call it, the CTO for first 4 years.
You made the
Uh,
decision to write Acko front end in Elm. Is that right? No. Is that right?
so
Remember it correctly?
yes, I'm a huge fan of Elm,
Okay.
and yeah. So we had probably at one time more than 100,000 lines of Elm code in production. Right, one
Nice.
of the probably the biggest code in production companies.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it work?
So oh, it works brilliantly. It's like even right now it has a lot of negative this thing because of the whatever the Ivan Chapliki not releasing stuff and him being a slightly weird person. I mean, he tries to be nice, but he ends up being weird, off-putting for a lot of people.
Okay.
Uh, but you can just use Elm right now, and you would not face any problem.
Wonderful.
It's a brilliant this thing. Um, yeah, I'm saying that as someone who has maintained 100,000 lines of code, like it's not just
Yeah.
a tutorial; it scales really well.
Nice.
Um, It was a single code base. That's the mind blowing part. It's a single repository with one single that big project. We invented our own way of doing it though. Like we figured out how to do like when you load the page, we'd not load the entire 100K equivalent JavaScript. You would uh, do what is called lazy loading or whatever. Like you do
Pre-shaking.
stuff in pre-checking is built time. Like when you're browsing
Okay.
from page A to page B,
Understood.
the page B we only fetch the delta from page A.
Nice.
Like the JavaScript that is already included in page A, in page B when you fetch the delta. So I think a compilation target, the JavaScript file is actually very programmable. So that's what we did. We looked at the JavaScript file and then we wrote tooling on top of it to figure out the dependency tree of what means what. So the code is actually very, like, we created our own tree shaker come dynamic loader, whatever. So end result was that we had um, a very reliable way of knowing what code is needed. So when we move from, or for example, when you click on a button and it loads a dialog, the dialog JavaScript, internal JavaScript was not part of the initial page load.
Mhm.
So when the dialog is loaded, at that time we'll again fetch what is needed. And
Nice.
that engineering, basically what we did, actually was the precursor of fastn. Like we were really disappointed by generally front end um, programming, and I've experimented with a lot of stuff. I've experimented even with that. I'm forgetting the name, that Python thing where you can run Python in browser, like the Python thing that compiles and right. I'm forgetting the name. It was just an experiment, but I created a very interesting this thing. I have tried uh, closure in browser. I've tried lots of stuff, and I was one of my first thing that became popular on Hacker News was a very big tutorial I wrote about Dojo. At one time, Dojo was one of the in 2005-6
Yeah.
period. Dojo was a thing,
Dojo
and
framework. Yeah.
I really was rooting for them. And
Okay.
maybe you can say that I've always rooted for the like non-popular
For
alternatives,
the
and
underdog.
underdog, yeah. But they always had better design. I don't know. It's like a Madonna or whatever, like the pop culture effect, where the pop music is always the most popular music, and
Correct.
everybody just loves them, not
Yes.
realizing that it's actually a good music. So whatever. Uh, so coming back, so Fastn is the thing that we. So Fastn actually started also in a very interesting way. Like I did a company or rather a product. I didn't create a company in around 2010, 11, 12 period, um, where I was trying to remix books. Basically, the idea is that when you and me are thinking of authoring a book, it is a considered an extremely heavy investment in terms of time and blah blah. We don't have what we have in software, which is just adding a bunch of in Python or in C or React. You don't start from scratch. You have an ecosystem, compatible open source stuff that you can add in your package.json or requirement.txt. You don't write every line of Python that is in production.
Yeah.
You just you add your own contribution, right? So, but when we are writing a book, we have to write every single word of that, right? Like that to me is a wrong way the books are written in the world, which leads to very bad consequence, which is huge amount of for dummies book and no book for any real programmer, right?
Yeah.
Like um, so my idea was that can I let anyone like that? Their idea was, can we have a billion books basically? Can we have every single person figure out, like for example, you might be using React plus Node plus maybe PostgreSQL. So can you? But you are not using either of them completely. Like if I give you a React book, you probably don't need to read the React book end to end. You
Mm.
don't need to read the notebook end to end or Git book end to end or Linux book end to end and so on. So you as a team lead know what do you need to know to be productive in this particular team, which would be a subset of React and a subset of Linux and a subset of Git and a subset of. So if and only you can know, right? No author can know what you need, right, in your team. So if imagine if it was possible for you to just in a very quickly drag and drop way create a table of content and the whole book was created. So if I open, like I'm as an original author, open my book for such for such a platform. The way PyPy, I'm open sourcing my libraries or NPM. So if other people can just take those books and then figure out in a very granular way, like I need chapter 7 or even subsection or subsection level. Like we went to the subsection level. Can you just take subsection 12.7 and just um, include the from the Linux book and then from this book and so on. Right? If you can include that in a granular way and put them in the order in which you want your audience to, your intern or your team members to
That's
read,
insane. Well, with
and
LLMs now, this is totally possible, man. You can even give it a consistent style through the book. And
uh, I actually kind of don't really believe it. It's a very interesting topic. I don't want to really go there.
okay, we don't.
I
We
mean,
can we can do a separate.
you should ask yourself: is the reality fractal or not? If the reality is non-fractal, then yes. If the reality is fractal, if it has infinite complexity, the more you zoom in on any topic, if it becomes equally vast, despite you zooming in on a topic, it's a fractal-like nature of reality. And the nature is fractal-like, right? So I believe reality is fractal, and therefore AI is just a whatever. It will never be able to. It will be a good tool,
Oh,
but it will never
reality is
be
fractal, but our
what.
five senses are not. Like there's a
No,
limit
no,
to
no.
where we can.
We not at all. Like a person who goes into any deep topic, take any deep topic, and you can keep on going. You're using your five senses only to go into the. You go into manga, and you go inside manga. You go into one particular style of manga, and then the discussion will really start. Then you realize you don't know anything about the
I
topic.
think
So take
I
any topic,
I think
you will realize.
next
There's,
weekend we will shred this one up apart. Very
yeah.
interesting. Anyway,
Mm.
what happened with
So
this?
at that time, I realized the idea was nice,
Mm,
but I did not have a technology. Right, I had Markdown, which is extremely shallow. Right? At that time, I picked LaTeX actually because if you
wow.
really want to write book, LaTeX is a better book. But unfortunately, LaTeX is not great because how do I say? LaTeX is not web friendly. Obviously, I wanted it to be consumed primarily on web, and also LaTeX is not great because it's extremely hard learning
Nerdy.
curve.
Yeah, who can write
So
latex?
exactly.
Mm,
So in 2010, I started thinking about that. What is the right language for offering content? For next 100 years. It's this problem statement has been there. And as of now, my answer to you, all you is see fastn is only one. Right now, you just don't have any other alternative to fastn for which you can say, oh yeah, this is the language in which, or this is the tool in which next 100 years, next 500 years, books should be written.
so
Right?
everything.
React is not that, and so
Okay.
on. Right? Markdown is not that, and so on.
All your readmes, websites, etc. Is this what you're talking about? As
Yeah, I feel like they are all very, very extremely connected. How do you draw a line between README and website, right?
mm,
It's a very artificial technology decision we have taken.
mm.
Every README needs to probably include videos. It becomes more and more complex. Why, like GitHub supports today, you can expand collapse.
Mm.
And we are like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Like, we are sitting in 2025 and a small expand collapse is our upper limit of what you can do, right? I mean, forget about fighting cancer and going to space. Expand collapse is where our innovation ends, right? This is it. You guys are limited to
Well,
that,
agree to
decided by
disagree on
some
that. But
random.
I mean, I don't really agree with that statement. Expand collapse has been there since 25 years. Well, JavaScript came out, and
No,
after
but
a
that's
year
all we
later.
can do right now. I mean, on GitHub, when you use Markdown, you're
Oh, when you
limited
use
by the
Markdown.
technology.
Okay, when you use
Yeah,
Markdown. I didn't mean in the. You didn't mean
because
on the web in general.
I mean to say, as a practical example of what can you do
Mm,
right now, if you have to write a book, what will you pick?
mm,
You're forced to pick Markdown right now. This is the reality.
mm.
What will you do? Will you write your book in JavaScript React? Would you write in HTML? Would you write in
By
LaTeX?
book,
Would you
you
write in
mean
Markdown? Or would you write it in Google Doc or Microsoft Word?
yeah. And if you write it in
You have to
Google
only
Word,
choose
you can't
between
ship
these.
it to the web in any meaningful way.
Exactly. These are the only options you have
Mm.
other than fastn. I present to you that fastn is the only alternative. And with fastn, you can do anything. You can anything which can be done on web, but with a very pleasant syntax, right? The language is Markdown plus plus. If you only know English, you can write fastn. You can keep on going. So like Markdown is brilliant, right? But the Markdown has like a ceiling, a very, very low ceiling.
Mm.
I've just removed that ceiling. So you can start with Markdown, but if you want to build Google Map in Markdown, you can't. But with fastn you can. So Markdown is also Markdown, fastn is also Markdown replacement, and also it's a technology that, in which you can build your next Google Map or whatever.
That's
So it
great.
doesn't have a
I
ceiling.
I
It's
feel we are
just
coming close to demo time, but I just wanted to quickly cover that you also invented something called malai and kulfi. Can we
yeah.
just have a quick and how they fit into the fastn ecosystem and like what the goal is, and then it's demo time after that.
So when we built fastn, we realized that we have solved a very interesting problem, and we have built a very interesting technology. Right now, fastn is the only web server, web framework that can run on, let's say, your iPhone. Right? So you have Node and you have Rails and you have Java and Go and Rust. You probably will not ship a Rails or a Node or a Go server on iPhone, right? It'll be like, what are you talking about? That is
Yeah,
absolute crazy
crazy
talk, right?
talk.
Like,
Yeah.
exactly. The thing is, you can do it fast and right, and this happens to be a side effect because we built it in Rust and everything is a single binary and so forth. So right now, it is completely possible for you to run Fastn on your phone. The unfortunate fact is the network, the way things are, the way traditional internet client server applications are done, that is uh, technically, theoretically possible, but how do you make it practically? Like, what do you do with it,
This
right?
is
What
why
the
people
fact that you
invented
can. Hmm?
Mosh. I think Mosh was trying to solve the same problem as a shell on a phone where your towers keep switching, your IP keeps changing, perhaps. And
Absolutely. So these problems have been solved. Problems like every time we are doing this call, a bunch of people might be attending or what is called a mobile, and they must be so peer to peer. I realize that peer to peer is there, right? It's already a solved problem, and BitTorrent etc. introduced it, and WhatsApp and Zoom etc. have just made it absolutely essential part of our daily consumption, right? So
WebRTC,
peer to peer.
WebRTC, and so on.
Exactly. WebRTC is a peer-to-peer implementation for like the peer-to-peer is a fundamental thing, and WebRTC is one implementation. And Zoom may be using WebRTC, or they might be using like libp2p, or they might be doing something more. What is called
Elaborate.
in C, C++. So, so,
End-to-end
so
encryption and all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what we realized was the mistake that all of these guys who have built peer-to-peer application, starting from BitTorrent to Bitcoin to WhatsApp, etc., is they combine the networking part with the application part, right? So Discord has some sort of peer-to-peer implementation. We are doing this chat. It is opaque to us, and that is combining the networking part with this UI part, right? So you as a person like can enjoy WhatsApp or BitTorrent, but you cannot build your own P2P app. Right now, it's like you may have Node, you may have Django, you may have anything, but you can't build a P2P app, right? It's just you have to go and look install the P2P or some. There are a lot of not lot, but there are some alternatives. IRAW being one of them for us that has come up, which we have picked. But it's a very low level. It's like saying ki TCP. Sorry, somebody inventing TCP. The TCP was invented, and but we don't use TCP. We use Node, right? Like when we are doing web development, we use Ruby on Rails or Django because you need a framework which makes it extremely trivial for virtually anyone to create application, right? So there is no such framework for building web applications which are served over P2P. So
Do you have a thesis around this? I see a lot of people working on the same problem, tail scale, and so on, of more and more computation moving on to the peers and more and more need for peers to be connected. What are you seeing
uh,
that is
absolutely right. So we have all of us have tremendous computers in our like we have access to our laptops and even mobile phones today are extremely powerful. The first mobile phone, the current mobile phone that I have is probably more CPU wise and RAM wise more distinct than the first. Like even today, if you go to DigitalOcean, the default server that you take is probably much lesser capability wise than the phone that you
yep,
have,
yep,
etc.
yep, yep.
And then you have computers lying in your desktop and you have laptops, and this whole what has happened, right? Like we started with internet was there, and then we started hosting servers in our houses or in your offices. But then this, what is called the data centers came up, and it was obvious that we cannot keep on maintaining our servers. But the real thing that pushed, and after data center we came the cloud world and so forth, right? But it was almost always not just because today, like for example, the internet I'm using is pretty reliable, right? In last so many days, I don't think of any outage.
It,
I have decent power. There is no reason my server cannot be here. There is no reason why I should put my server on someone else's data center or even worse, take
in India, that's a bit of
because
a, I mean, it's a bit patchy though. I agree. In the rest of the world, it's
but
more or
the
less
thing is,
okay.
for a lot of application that you write, for example, if you're writing an internet application for your company, you have to want to do payroll, you want to do chat for your
Right.
company, you want to do so many things.
Yeah.
The uptime that we have is good enough. You're
Yeah.
not
I mean,
always
if the
running
lights
over
are on in the
at
office,
exactly
it's
that point.
working. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for a lot of applications, the uptime that we require is good enough for the company. If the company internet is down, for all company internet usage, right? Like
Right.
imagine that there
Understood.
is just absolute 100% uptime because if company internet is down,
Yeah. Everything stops
employees
and
can't
goes.
access also.
Yeah.
So, so there's a huge amount of resources which are untapped, right? Every single laptop and desktop and so on is not being utilized, and we are all forced to pay lots of dollars per month, right, to all of these guys, and they are all, how do I say,
So could I, for
not
example,
at all.
build a distributed LLM training cluster using fastn?
So technically, yes, but I'm not going there. I am thinking about Ruby on Rails. Hello world of Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is a very fancy thing. I am saying ki, let's take something as simple as the hello world of a web app. How do we make it such that you can deploy it in your house? Because if you deploy something in your house, you cannot, you do not have a public IP address. And in general, getting a public IP address and assigning it to your server in your house is probably a bad idea because you will immediately be subjected to all sorts of internet attacks. Right? The moment you're on internet, you're constantly being
Yeah.
bombarded with your SSH, and you'll have lots of script kiddies constantly
Yep.
scraping your site and port
Yeah.
port scanning you, and so on. Right? So it's not a good idea to have public IP. And if you don't have a public ID, the computer in your house is virtually useless,
Mm.
right? It is a extremely powerful computer. It can do so much, and but you can't do anything because you don't have obligation. So you are forced to come up with complicated schemes like let me put a VPN or some sort of digital ocean and do some port forwarding or use stuff like Tailscale. Unfortunately, all of these solutions are again fifth thesis is all about how do we take this super awesome cool stuff that is accessible to developers and make it available to the real human beings, common people. Right. So Tailscale, as awesome it might be for you and me, is not for your non-devs in your company, right?
Great.
So the entire fifth eye approach is technology is awesome. Just make it accessible because if it is not accessible, it is as good as not existing, or it creates a very bad class system, right? Like look at the techies versus tech
Yeah.
bros become like the ruler of the world type,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why? Because we have access to all the technologies, and people like non-techies have, oh, Google Docs is the best you can do, right? Like what about Git? We actually built our own version control system, and like, we don't want to go there. But this is our overarching thesis
This
that
sounds like
we do want to.
the perfect nerd side quest.
Exactly. I feel so lucky that I was able to pull this off somehow.
Spectacular. Well,
Uh,
enough talk.
yeah,
Time to
let's show.
see the
Uh,
code.
I am saying so many big things, and I can't even share my screen. Something is wrong with my Discord today. It's not scrolling. Let me try it a few more times.
Take your time. I can edit this part out.
Ah, perfect. Keyboard to the rescue. So you can see on screen. Let's start with what we have built. So consider this is so we are running fastn serve, which is starting a website on my local machine 127.0.1. Everybody is familiar with this. I don't know what's happened. Yeah. So apologies for the site not yet being fully mobile optimized. So so this is so obviously I can run stuff on my machine, but it is not accessible for people like anyone else. So which is where we come up and we have built this tool, right? So you can run this. I think I might have an old version of Malai installed. I don't want to test with that. This is the Malai which is available to you as a
The
did I
sta-
also
the stable version.
install? Yeah, there's a release version that you all should use. I'm using a development version because I'm just doing some. Might not be a great idea actually because of this reason because it's building it right now. But we have given it enough time, so we'll finish it. Perfect. So now I have started this Malai, which is exposing this port, which is 8000, which is an HTTP service. And so the most interesting thing that you see here is this ID 52.
Mm-hmm.
This ID 52 is the equivalent of IP address.
Okay.
Right? And you can not give IP address colon port. If the port is a hack in my opinion, port was like we internet guys who designed internet made a mistake starting from the day they introduced port. So there should not be a port, and but that's not my strong thesis. Port may be good, but this is sufficient for me to uniquely identify the service, the exact service. I don't have to because we have made it really cheap. This is IP address is finite, right? IP32 is finite. IP64 definitely is way more, but even then, it is management wise extremely painful. For example, if I tell you, can you create 10,000 IP address and assign it to your laptop? Uh, you possibly you can do that. I think possibly it's going to be a very bad idea because Linux and everything is not optimized for that many IP addresses. If each application is etc. So you'll be doing something which is very very funky. Whereas this is our starting point. Right? We give you you can create the key. If you remember when we started it, a dialog came which was asking for what is a
Key chain
password.
access.
Uh, yeah. So this is because this is actually a, a public private key, right? So this is the public portion of a public private key. And this key is stored in my keychain. The private portion of this key is stored in my keychain. So that's why Mac was asking me, do you want to allow this particular new binary to access the keychain dialog? And so this becomes this, and now you can access this either through this. This is our offering. So we have created a bridge of sorts, which bridges HTTP world with the peer-to-peer world. Oh my god, has something gone wrong? Siddhant is there. This is a standard demo issue. It used to work very well. So apologies if it is slightly slow. Um, so, so as you see now, the site is accessible, and I can share this URL on the Discord. And I would request that you guys can also try it out. We can see the stuff that is happening. So I think I'm receiving more traffic from other people. So it looks like someone else is trying it out. All of this is going via our bridge to this process, and from that process, traffic is going to my fastn server. Now, the most interesting thing is that while it looks like a lot of people will call it a little like ngrok, etc., this is just a convenience. It's not really needed. First of all, you can run your own service called we are calling it the bridge on your own device, but you can also do this, which is let me find out the ID of this guy. Uh, Sorry, I've stopped it just to complete the ID. If you guys are accessing it, sorry. So now you can access this also via what is it called browse. So the same site, I'm trying to access it via. So in this scenario, anyone can install Malai and they can run this Malai space browse and whatever was the ID 52 that was given here. So you see this is ID 52 which I have used. And so you don't even need our service, right? So we can shut down this Kulfi.site or this can be blocked or whatever. You don't have to trust this Kulfi.site. It is just there to quickly create a demo. But what is happening is now a separate process which is running over here is has started this port, right? This HTTP server on this particular port, which is not running on your local machine, and you're basically effectively browsing that site. Right? So the site is now accessible to you without any intermediary. So right now in this universe, in this setup, there is only Malai browse running on one machine and Malai HTTP running on another machine, right? So there's no kind of like an intermediary, right? So this is slightly oversimplification of things, but there is no fifth try related intermediary. That is absolutely true. The reason that I'm saying there is oversimplification is because there is a when you initiate the connection. So let me go back to now. You can do a chat question. Or you're seeing the demo. I can. Uh, So how does this work, right? That's the fundamental question, right? So obviously everything is built on top of TCP/IP. So it's not necessarily TCP or UDP. UDP is kind of built on top of UDP. Right? These two processes are talking to each other via UDP, but there is some HTTP or TCP/IP involved in the beginning when you are doing the connection setup. Now, whatever I'm talking about is standard P2P business, right? So I can describe to you this. You can go and read about how does WebRTC work, for example, right? So when you do WebRTC connection, both peers exchange. So there's a process called what do you call it? Hole punching, NAT hole punching or something. So NAT hole punching will in detail give you the specifics about how does it happen. So there is an initial interaction between the two players, and that happens through what they call relay in the IRO world. So we are using a technology called IRO. So you can Google IRO.computer or whatever, and IROH. I'll share the link also in the chat. So these guys are running these servers called relay servers, which thank you, Siddhant, which will so all our processes start and connect to the relay server, and but each client is connected to us possibly a separate relay server. So you don't have to be like sharing a single. So there's a single point of failure. So in this entire thing, the most important thing is like these technologies are built with problem statements like can we stop even like a like if the entire state actors are attacking you, right? Like can this be resilient in the face of attack by an entire like a Russia attacks you in digitally, for example? Can you obviously if they come and shoot you, that's a different story, but at the least digitally they can't shut it down.
So
That's how it is designed.
there is no
And
concept of
yeah,
a root node. Sorry, I am very basic in my knowledge of this.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
Then
So
how do nodes
so
discover each other? BitTorrent
the
style.
discovery. Exactly. So,
Okay.
in fact, BitTorrent, I was very happy to surprised to hear that BitTorrent is not just a file sharing network. BitTorrent also runs what is called mainline DHT. So,
Mhm.
BitTorrent mainline DHT, if you Google that, um, it's a distributed hash table, right? And this is a general purpose distributed hash table. Any application can use it. It's not just BitTorrent uses that. So every time somebody shares the torrent link with you, earlier we used to have tracker, and tracker was a failure point. People used to just kill the tracker
Yeah.
because tracker was always a well-known IP address or a domain. You can kill that, attack that server. So BitTorrent developed this thing called mainline DHT in around 2004-5, and they realized that this is not something which should exclusively be kept for. So they created, I think, BEM5, BitTorrent Enhancement something proposal 5. I think I'm not sure it is 5 or not, but there's a enhancement proposal in 2005, and they generalized it so that anyone who needs a DHT can use BitTorrent mainline DHT. And you and me, we know that since around 2005 or earlier, everybody from Hollywood to North Korean dictators, everyone have been trying to shut down BitTorrent,
Mm.
right? Like, and BitTorrent is resilient. Like if BitTorrent can survive, our network can survive because we are effectively built on top of BitTorrent and using virtually exactly the same technology. And earlier, this was a cause of a slight concern for me because, if we associate ourselves with BitTorrent, obviously it will be a negative association. But today, thankfully, the way, thanks to Corona, everyone is using video calls. And video calls, are all peer to peer. It is simply not possible for us to route the video calls from WhatsApp or Zoom infrastructure. That would kill the video performance. So suddenly the P2P, the biggest usage, 99% of the P2P traffic today is actually video calls. So no longer the BitTorrent. So 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 network like Airtel etc. will also not change their internet setups to stop peer to peer, because if they stop peer to peer, all our Zoom call and video calls will suffer.
Hold on one
So
second. Hold on one second. I've messed up the. How do I unpin it? Okay. Yes. Sorry. We're back. Carry on.
yeah, so hopefully we are sitting on foundations done by other people, not our contribution. Our contribution is just like Ruby on Rails. Like we are like that. We just are creating a very convenient thing for regular developers, not like some funky network programming stuff. We built it relatively quickly. You guys are highly advised to go play with Arrow. You go play with WireGuard. So Tailscale is built on top of WireGuard. So WireGuard and Arrow, WireGuard in Go and Arrow and Rust are very good technology, very accessible for you guys to, for anyone to try out what is this whole P2P thing and how do you build your own real-time video chat, for example, if you want to do that. You'll have to use
But you said if I
configure
use
this technology.
Tailscale, I expose my computer to the internet. Am I not doing the same thing with Malai and Kulfi?
No, so
I do
first of
end
all,
up
I
with
am
the
not saying
HTTP.
if you use Tailscale, you're safe.
Ah,
You are unsafe if you get an IP address
okay.
and associated public IP address, which
Okay.
is possible. It is expensive, but it is not a good idea. But
Understood.
Tailscale is a private network.
Understood.
You can argue at the face of it, it might appear because Tailscale is a private network. Who connects the network that you have created is controlled by you. Whereas in my case, there is a single Kulfi network, which is like that's why I'm calling it like the new internet. It's accessible to everyone, and you can technically argue that yes, we are less safe than Tailscale. If you specifically compare it with a Tailscale,
Mm-hmm.
because Tailscale may every device that has part of the network is has been explicitly added to that network,
Mm-hmm.
so that gives you an extra layer of safety. But having said that, that's how we have dividing this whole thing. So Malai is a low-level networking thing. Kulfi is the access control part of it. So
Understood.
Kulfi is the real thing. So if you just use Malai and you in all like we will add a dash public flag to the HTTP to make it very explicit that you have explicitly made it public. But most of the time, as soon as the Kulfi is in place, when you start Malai, it will ask you what is the corresponding Kulfi. So Kulfi you'll be able to create a network. So for your personal family, this thing, or for your company, or for any school or organization or group like this Discord thing, you can create a network, and then you can create a. You can then figure out what is access. How are you adding devices? You can do it based on various. And the beautiful thing is, you can do it in the sense because fastn all of that would be powered by fastn, and virtually anyone can write. And I'll
Which
just give
brings
you an
us,
example right now in
yeah, it
this
brings us
chat we have.
nicely. We started the discussion
Yeah.
with fastn, but we didn't see a demo yet. Would really love to see what are the cool language features that you've thought about, how it's better than everything else out there.
Demo. So I would. So so this is fastn. The most interesting thing about fastn is this simple snippet, for example. So as you see, this is quite low in syntax. That's the goal that we have, because when someone learns, the syntax is probably the first stumbling block. And the reason Markdown was invented was, even if it is easy for us to understand the syntax. We just hate the HTML syntax, right? We don't like writing HTML by hand because it's very verbose, right? So even people, it's not just learning. Usability also matters, right? Even if you know how to use something, if it's not very usable, you hate it. You don't want to use it, and that's what we have done. So this is, you can think of this as, this is Markdown plus plus, right? This looks like, nothing. And but the beautiful thing is, look at the output of this, right? So this is actually not possible with Markdown, right? So we actually have created, now there's an import statement, which means there's an actual package, right? And this is the package. You can go to that package, and hopefully the site is still working. So this is a package, and you can you can see the snippets of it, and you can how to add this. You have to add this
Wait, wait,
particular
wait. We
dependency.
can only see your fastn.com. Are you showing something else?
Yes, I clicked on. Is the tab not switching?
No.
Is my screen not moving at all?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, let me reshare.
Bling. Ulhas, you can see Bling. I can see announcing malai. Yeah, bling.fifttry.site. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's very slow. Let me reshare. Let me see if it changes anything. Yeah.
Coming. Yeah.
And you see fastn.com and this. So
Yeah.
basically, what I did was, this is the package,
Ah,
and
okay. Understood.
right.
I
So
thought
this
you
is
were. Sorry, my bad. I misunderstood.
okay.
Hmm.
So we are importing a module, and like this is the URL, right? Like that I imported over here. And when you go to this, so this is another really tiny thing that we have done, right? The import statement is an actual proper documentation of whatever you are importing, right? Like you can think that this is the simplest thing you could have done, right? When it comes to making programming easy and accessible to people, I believe this is complete nonsense to give the package name that JavaScript and Python, etc., have decided to give, right? They could have just done this. The fact that they have not done this is just a very poor choice on those language designers' part. Go tried to do it, but even Go doesn't try to enforce the discipline that import statement is actually also the documentation of that particular package, which is totally doable. And it is sad that they don't do it, right? It's like, it's really whatever. So you can see that every package has a proper URL, and now you can kind of read the documentation, and it is kind of so you can so now, in terms of the language, we start with this, a very simple Markdown friendly thing, which doesn't stop at being simple, right? We have you can create your own components. So for example, right? So you can use the existing component, but you can create your own component, right? So this is the JS. If you know the React, etc., you are creating components all the time. So here we are creating a component, and I want you to again appreciate the fact that the syntax for creating the component, syntax for authoring something, syntax for creating a function, creating, let's say, a variable. Let's say you're over here, you're creating a variable, right? You're creating an integer. This thing. If I show you any language like Java or Node or Python, the way you import something, the way you declare a variable, the way you declare a function, the way you create a component, they all have different syntax. And in my opinion, that is just complete utter nonsense. That they have just decided to do it. There was no technical reason why it should be different syntax. It just forces you to learn, right? Like it's not giving you any reward for why do I have to learn that, do it in a weird way that they have chosen. In fact, so many new languages come up and they just take something as simple as function definition and they just create a new invent a new syntax. It is extremely infuriating to me, right? Because this is just you don't not created anything new. You just created a new syntax, which means ki the person who is using it is not getting any new power, right? They are just struggling with, okay, how do I do this? It's like somebody creating a new door, and the handle is very, very weird that I can't understand the door, right? It's just a fucking door. Let me open the handle and go through it. I don't want to. It's like bathrooms, right? Some of the places will have these bathrooms with very weird male and female symbols that you have to sit and
And don't
scratch your
even
head to figure
get me
out.
don't even get me started on the taps. Every tap is different.
Exactly, exactly. It's just I have no idea. I consider it madness, but unfortunately, programming world is full of this madness. How do I define a function in this language? Are you going to use fun, fn, def? It's like just I don't know. It's like complete massive craziness. Like some people, oh, why do you need even symbol? Let's just put round brackets and sure, go ahead. We are trying to make it easy for regular people, right? We are trying to say, okay, look at the programming world right now. It's so sad that you know there are 25, 30 million programmers in the world. There are some 65, 70 million people who use Excel and who write non-trivial formulas. Those people, 65 million people right now, know how what is if. They know what is function call. They know what is conditions. They know loops. They know everything that you think a fundamental programmer must know.
Hmm.
But if you ask them, hey, are you a programmer? They will vehemently tell you, no, absolutely not. I am not a programmer.
Hmm.
What the it's like think about that. A person who knows every single thing about cricketer vehemently tell you we I have nothing to do with cricket. Just don't even bother putting me in that category, right? Like just keep me away from that. It's that's what we have achieved by the madness that we have in the programming world. Like the JavaScript you've seen, like the JavaScript have gone like completely on cocaine. Like it's like a
Don't don't
completely
don't
crazy
don't go there.
world.
Don't
I
even.
have no idea what to say. But anyway, so we are hoping to bring that. So so while simplicity is definitely one thing that we have we have tried to achieve, I think the real thing that we have tried to achieve is uh, new paradigms. So so I'll show you this program, right? I'm hoping that this still works. Right? So this is a simple calculator, right? Um, sorry, counter. Everyone has probably seen this kind of app. Now, if you look at JavaScript, JavaScript is not reactive, right? If you look at virtually all programming languages, they are designed with stdio in the mind. The programming model that they have is text, right? The Linux has or Unix world has created, oh, text is everything. And while it is true, it is very good. Saying text is everything is done huge amount of harm to all, especially front-end developers. Because when we are building something, we are not building text. We are building UI, right? So there is no really UI first programming languages, right? So in Python and in Node, or even in JavaScript, which is part of the browser, JavaScript it doesn't know about UI. JavaScript simply knows about text, right? Or these APIs, right? There's no concept of UI in JavaScript, pure JavaScript. We just look at JavaScript language specification. You ask what is UI. There is no such thing, right? So we have taken a very very how do I say outdated model and or whatever one model and try to fit in a totally different context, which leads to and what we need is the activity, right? So if you what I mean here is let's say if I have this integer x and if I have used it anywhere, like for example over here, look at this particular variable, right? This is a sum of two variables, right? And if you look at Excel, for example, so what I'm trying to say, Excel got it right. So JavaScript and HTML and Python and all of these people have totally like completely created extremely complicated monstrosity and didn't even solve the basic problem that Excel solved on day one in 1990 something, right? Where if you modify a cell and if another cell depends on that, it has never happened that the second cell which depended on the first cell has not updated, right? That is nonsense. So the concept of reactivity doesn't exist and it can totally exist like the way Excel has proved. Excel has been we use it day in and day out like every single day. So we have created this Excel-like paradigm, which we call reactivity. React tried to create reactivity, Svelte tried to create reactivity, etc. And they all have completely failed on the very task that they have tried to do. And we have, I believe, succeeded because in React and all of those languages, you have to do something special to designate a variable which is a plain variable, a JavaScript variable versus a reactive thing, right? You have to create explicitly something called a signal or a hook or just nonsense thing like hook. You have to create a hook. Like it makes sense to some people. I have absolutely no idea how we have arrived at this answer key. You have to make a variable, you have to just use it, make it a hook, right? It's like sure, I mean, I have no idea.
because
You're living in complete la la land. Sure. You have to make it a
because
hook.
because React requires you to be a programmer, and there are a lot of people working in programming who are not programmers, and they kept stuffing props in the wrong places, and it just kept uh,
But
juddering the
but
render function each time. And
but that is equivalent to you saying you have to do manual memory management
in
because
Excel,
programmers were always doing the wrong
no,
tree
Excel
and
doesn't need it, for example.
exactly.
Right.
It is not needed. Compiler can solve that problem. It's like garbage collector. So I'm thinking when we look at programming language, we have paradigms, right? We have a paradigm called static versus dynamic programming language, right? We know all classify all programming languages on their type versus non-type aspect. We also have paradigms like whether they have garbage collection or manual memory collection management and so on. So there are these paradigms, right? They are functional versus non-functional object oriented. We are introducing a brand new paradigm called reactivity, right? Like JavaScript and Python, etc., are not reactive. They don't have a concept of UI objects. So in our programming language, any variable or any data or anything which is not actually linked to UI. If you load the page and if you declare a variable X and this is not shown used as a padding or a text or anywhere else in the UI, that X, but the compiler simply tree shakes it. That the compiler simply ignores that variable X. So it actually only traverses the UI. It looks at the UI component and it goes back and looks at the dependency of every single thing that was referred to by so the exact dependency analysis and any function or any thing which was used to render the main page is the only thing which is actually ever used. We also have a concept of mutability. Rust has introduced the concept of mutability, but we have slightly stronger mutability. Like, for example, declaring a variable as mutable doesn't make it a mutable variable unless there is a UI which mutates it. Right. So if you just have a mutable variable, and let's say the current value of that mutable variable is true and let false, and let's say some UI dependent on that variable. So our compiler can ignore that UI because the current value of that mutable is false, and there is nothing in the UI which is mutating it. So effectively, the mutable variable is a constant. It's a so Rust doesn't do that. We do that, right? So we have taken mutability and made it slightly more interesting, and we have obviously the activities. So we try to make it simple and obviously also solve actual real interesting hard problems for that matter. I mean, we have not solved it. 0.4 is has a lot of good properties, but unfortunately, its compiler is very slow. So we are working on 0.5, and we really want anyone who wants to please come help us. It's all open source. We are trying to be fully, how do I say, liberal open source as much as we
Anarchist,
want.
I
But
like it.
yeah, that's fast. And yeah.
How do you do styling and stuff like the other?
I mean, we have created when we mentioned UI, so UI is the only thing we have actually for that matter. Well, the UI is the root thing. So in terms of UI, when you add anything, one of the thing you can add is let's say ftd.text. So ftd.text is like a kernel component that we have created, which shows the text. We have ft.image, we have a row and column, and so on, right? So and we take attributes. So we have created a mini CSS. So we have studied like CSS is again like I really hate CSS guys who have
What? I love CSS.
invented.
It's the thing that saves me from JavaScript the most these days.
Yeah, that. it's like saying, ki, I love this person because he saves me from this bully types, right? Like, sure, it's a nightmare.
No, CSS is legit
Yeah,
nice, man.
in that,
What don't you like
so
about
I would say in CSS, you virtually are not doing anything which you could have done in Qt in 1998. Okay, I have been using Qt, the troll text C++ library for building UI. The KD is built on Qt, right? Brilliant this thing. And in '98, if you would have given me any Figma design, I would have just converted to Qt and it would be done.
it?
And they use sensible things like rows and columns.
Hmm.
CSS is like people are completely high on some weird. They've decided, okay, for me, I'll first use float or I will use table. Complete nonsense. Then I'll have something called box model, which is absolute horrible mistake. I have no idea what they're trying to do. Then they have something called flex or flex spot. Like think about it's like these guys are
Yeah,
like
they're
I'm
greedy.
going to get awarded for something creating absolutely non-trivial to understand.
Hmm.
You are creating rows, you are creating columns. That is all you need to know if you are doing web development. This whole flex and grid is still at least shows something to do with layouting, right? Flex has nothing to do with layouting. It's like if you ask what is the most horrible name you can come up with the central concept for learning layouting in who will think naturally, right? No one will think naturally, oh, I have to Google Flex. And that's the fuck up. Like, do you really think CSS 1, 2, 3, 4 is justified? Have you ever seen the CSS spec? Do you even know that anybody who uses CSS knows CSS? It's horrible monstrosity. It's like government of India, I can ignore it. The GST code manual is this thick.
Yeah.
I get it. Government bureaucracies are idiotic. We all agree with it. But why are we assuming it's the same thing which is producing this thick CSS manual, which no one needs? What you need is like 5 or 10 things. Like look at look at the tailwind, right? Like what they virtually don't even give you any CSS. They just give you classes because all the CSS has already been written. Just figure out which class you want need to apply. So the number of total CSS properties Tailwind is using is probably 20-30, right? I'm exaggerating probably less than 10. On a 99% basis, 99% of the CSS will probably be covered by maybe 5 or 7 properties, right? So you only need 5, 7 properties. I'm pretty sure very soon there will be CSS 6 and 7, which will be this thick book about how to reinvent. I have no idea what they are going to do. And you will still not be able to do
Hey,
virtually anything. I'm sure animation is slightly interesting, but nothing else has been added to this world
uh,
other than pain and torture.
sorry, Amit. Are we doing more demoing? Because then I can switch to the more comfortable two-person view.
No, I think you can do questions
Great. So just a couple of questions. You said you're at 0.4. What's on the roadmap?
for fastn.
Mhm.
Um, so the So fastn 0.3 to 0.4 was all about changing the architecture from being interpreted language to a compiled language.
Mhm.
And we compiled to JS, JavaScript. So 0.4 maybe kind of did half of it. The architecture was not fully decoupled. Our goal is to create a compiler which takes any FTD file and creates a JS file and the CSS and HTML file so that you can, at the runtime, when you have to render that page, you don't have to invoke the compiler. So that is one of the most important architectural work that we are doing. We want to finish it. We kind of believe that our language is lets you do write functions in FTD itself, or it lets you uh, zoom in and or whatever use JavaScript functions. So right now, most of the front end, if you want to do anything very interesting, or our function language is very poor. We don't even support if for that matter. So if you want to do something, we do if on a UI level. So we have two level. We have a F script and a P script, kind of like HTML and JavaScript kind of distinction. The most of the HTML-ish thing, which is HTML, CSS, and conditionally showing hiding stuff and event handling, they are all very good. But the F script, which is purely functional part, that is very poor. So
What is
so
the
we are
output of the compiler look like? Is it two files, one HTML, one JS?
currently is HTML with JavaScript. So there are a bunch of JavaScript libraries that we have, which is included in that. which adds the reactivity, etc. that I mentioned,
Okay.
event handling and reactivity parts. And mostly HTML says we are not happy with the compiler output. So
Okay.
that's definitely in our this thing. It is totally possible to do lot less, generate lot smaller HTML. But
So
that's not the most exciting part. The most exciting part to me is we have also created a POC of FTD, because FTD, the reason we want to disassociate ourselves from HTML is because we want to be we want to be about UI, not about web UI. So we have written a experimental renderer which renders our UI in terminal. So you can actually run a branch there. I don't know if it compiles right now or not, but at least in one point it compiles. So you can just in the terminal. So your same program which runs on your website also will run on terminal with zero changes. Obviously, if you're using really CSS, so there's some. It's like Rust, where if you're in pure Rust, sure, it will compile on all platforms. But if you're using a platform-specific library or API, obviously that will only work on that particular platform. So if you have so we allow web components, we allow JavaScript and CSS. So if you are relying on that functionality, that will not work on terminal. But if you are using pure FTD, then yes, that will completely work on terminal. So we want to create our own terminal-based rendering. We want to create our own full UI. Like we also have an experiment where we are using compiling our
wait,
FTD
this
code to
sounds like a
walkthrough.
very hard problem. I'll tell you why. Because web pages are infinitely long, and you have a flowing layout, right? And you want to kind of constrain the layout at particular places. But terminals have a fixed length, and then you have the concept of pages like web. So how do
I
you
mean,
deal
we
with
can give
this?
scroll events. We'll give you scroll events.
Okay,
I mean, look at Vim. You are always scrolling. We need scroll. Otherwise, it is the same.
understood. In the term, okay, okay, it's a terminal application. Understood. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it will be an application. It will be a Vim-like application which will fully
yeah,
interactive curses or whatever
yeah,
application.
yeah.
So we want to really render it. So the Watson thing was done so that we can use WebGL and directly render to WebGL, right? Like so that we don't need the HTML CSS rendering engine. So we want to so to talk about fastn and malai together and why we are extremely excited about it and what is our real what we are trying. So consider, let's say, this TV that I have, right? We are going to very soon create a Raspberry Pi, this thing in which we'll compile uh, 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 Malai and fastn, etc. And then TV using Tori, if you know Rust, it's a web view thing. So it will run full screen. So my fastn application basically running on that Raspberry Pi will run in full screen on TV, connected via Malai or Kulfi network to, let's say, this particular browser that I'm using right now. And I can do a screen sharing, and whatever I'm sharing will go on the TV. Right? Our goal is to then take that's a prototype. Once the Raspberry based prototype is there, we want to package it into a Fire Stick uh, like thing where you have an HDMI and you give it
Mm,
power
mm,
and connect it to Wi-Fi. And then that's all. And we are basically saying we want to create this open hardware, completely open license the way Raspberry is. Because our goal is to keep every webcam that is there, every smart thing that you have needs UI,
mm.
right? So our goal is this: ki every smart thing needs today Wi-Fi connectivity. So how do you do that? Right? How do you telnet or SSH to the TV or the computer which is running on your fridge, right? What is the answer? There is no answer there. We are saying every fridge, every smart device should run Malai Kulfi stack. Kulfi is Malai plus fastn. So you
Mm.
have to run both, because if you want to build any UI ever, React is not the answer, etc. We are saying the fastn is the answer. If you want to really put something on TV and on that tiny AC and on your cameras, on your baby monitors, on your all sorts of devices you can imagine, we are basically saying put all of them this Kulfi or module. This is a hardware module just connected like HDMI slash uh, camera module plus whatever, and it will connect it. and we will have strong ACL. So ACL is a very strong part of Kulfi, so that whenever you install a device, it will get connected, added to some sort of account, which will be either your account or a company account, which will be managed by multiple people. And so that's the goal, right?
Hey,
So we want every device, hardware, smart device, to be connected to the network in a secure way, in a reliable way. Have awesome UI that you or even non-programmers can quickly build UI for the TV and etc. If I ask you, can you build a UI for your TV? Answer would be probably no. Whereas with fastn, with the Kulfi, stick, fastn stick, or whatever we call it, answer would be
very,
clear.
very freaking ambitious goals. It's so great to see this. I think if you are a language nerd in India today, I think this is one of the projects you should be contributing to, right? Because you're writing a compiler, the compiler is slow, you're going to go in, dig in, figure out all the ways to optimize the performance. There are compile targets. I guess at some point you will want to just spit out Android and iOS apps using Kulfi. Is that the goal? I'm guessing it must be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, wow, this is a phenomenal opportunity to show this thing. How, feel free to not answer. How are you paying for all of this?
We have some funding. We
Okay.
have about 2 years, 1.5 years or so of runway with the
So,
current
are you
funding.
hiring full time as well?
Unfortunately, to keep that runway, we can't afford more people.
Still,
Um,
for an ambitious language nerd, this is a good place to showcase and make a real world impact.
uh, I
Great.
mean, we are hoping to create for Kulfi some sort of open collective or something so that people can give donation. Maybe some donation comes. Because I want to really keep Kulfi and even fastn kind of free from fifth right? Like I want them to really be an independent open source project. I do have a lot of plans on how to use them. Like you need hosting, you need backup, you need file sharing, backup TA, you need lots of services that I can build. It's like when email and Chrome and HTTP were invented, if somebody tried to make those technologies proprietary, it would have killed the internet. So if you leave the technologies completely free,
Mm,
you have huge amount of like, what would be the Kulfi powered search engine?
mm.
What is the Kulfi accessible everything, Dropbox of Kulfi and what is the Amazon of Kulfi? Right? Like, everything is suddenly opening up. So I can just focus on any one of them instead of crippling the Kulfi itself by saying Kulfi is paid or whatever. So I want to keep the technology completely open source and worry about how do I make money in so many ways.
Amazing. I love the ambition. It's so great to see this coming out of India. Um, we've not had many questions. I think now is a good time before we wrap up. If anyone has any questions, someone asked, how is this different from latex? That was a while ago. I'm guessing the question has been answered with the demo, etc. Like latex scares me, but fastn doesn't scare me. So that is one easy difference. Can you do latex like things, mathematical formulae and so on, like, or can you embed latex inside fastn?
I mean, you can embed any JavaScript library. You can embed KTeX and you can put, uh, yeah. So we have very good interop with JavaScript. Like Fiftheye.com is built with, like, since last three years or so, every website that I've built is built through fastn. And I've never been like, the ID of Fiftheye, fastn ID itself is built in fastn. Obviously, it's using code mirror and all sorts of stuff. So, it's like, you can do anything as long as it is very simple because it's just web component. You just anywhere you feel like this I can't do, and then just put a web component there, and now you can do that.
And did you just say like WebGL is a compile target as well?
So in one of the branches or in one of the yeah, totally. So we do want terminal and WebGL based. We want to remove because if you ask me what is the cheapest device that if I want a camera or a TV to connect to like I want a hardware. So like web technology means you suddenly are talking about in terms of GB of RAM. It's just not possible to
Right.
take web view and run without a GB or so of RAM.
Okay.
Right. So we do want to really
So
figure out what is the absolute minimum
this
needed
is
to
then
render a
WebGL or
UI.
what they call OpenGL or whatever runs on the WebGL is
Yeah,
GL inside the
sorry, so
browser.
not WebGL. I was talking about WGPU.
Yeah.
The WGPU, the web,
Yeah.
it's a create in Rust, which is the standardizing sort of like uh, GPU access. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I guess we're out of questions. Amit, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I was fascinating. I first became aware of fastn, I think, when I first started the Discord and you joined and you talked about fastn, and I was like, interesting, but not sure. So I'm glad we had this chat. It's cleared up a lot of things, and especially about the ambition and where you want to take it. I'm going to try it out this weekend, man.
Absolutely. I'd love to support or take you through, answer any questions, etc. Yeah.
Fantastic. So with that, I guess we are at the end of this session. And thanks again, and all the best. You might want to drop your contacts in the chat. I guess people can just DM you on the Discord if they.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way. I'm always on Discord. My company works on Discord, so we are
There is
just
also,
Discord is the
yeah,
best
there
way.
is also a fast and public Discord, right, where people can
Yes, yes, yes,
jump in and
yes.
ask you things. So
I'll add it as a on the general. I'll add it as a link, invite link there.
okay, okay, language nerds in the audience, this is your invitation to.
So language nerds, networking nerds,
Yeah,
hardware nerds,
yes.
right? Like I'm looking for all three of them. I mean, I don't have money to hire, but
No,
I'm
it's
looking
open
for them.
source. It's viable. If
It's
it
all
goes
open
big,
source.
then we've
Yeah,
got early commits on
absolutely.
fastn, and that's bragging rights and so on. Great. What is FP Enjoyer's name? Are we allowed to say that?
Siddhant.
Okay, he's typing. So okay, he's got the link. So
He's the other developer.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
me and Siddhant has built. Arpita is also there. She built Fasten. Siddhant has built Malai and Kulfi stuff. Yeah.
Okay, all
So,
right. Do you want to invite them on stage so they can just introduce themselves, maybe,
yeah,
if
maybe
they want
that would
to?
be wonderful. How do I do that?
I don't know.
I
Invite.
think they can just join. I have to click myself
Yeah, I
and I
think.
invite them.
Do you all have? No, I had given them some special.
So,
What do you add?
oh, by the way, FP Enjoy, I hired him from your listing
Really,
only.
that's amazing to hear. That's amazing to hear. So, although I'm a recruiter, hiring on the Discord will always be free if you are a programmer and not a HR or talent acquisition, or they're not on the server mostly. But
Yeah,
if you are HR talent acquisition and you hire from my server, then you owe me money. But if you are another developer, feel free, just post whatever job you want. It will always be free. Fantastic. Sorry, I don't know with the Discord UI defeats even language creators and networking nerds. So we'll meet FP Enjoyer and Arpita somewhere down the road. Great. Thank you everyone for taking the time Saturday morning, and have a great weekend.
thanks a lot, FCS, for inviting me and giving me opportunity to present these ideas. Thanks everyone for please check it out.
Wonderful. Bye.